In a world that spins with relentless noise and unpredictability, where every day feels like a battle against unseen forces, there's a quiet power simmering beneath the surface of every woman's soul, the strength of inner calm. This isn't a fleeting pause or a momentary escape from the storm. It's a deep, deliberate state of being, a choice to stand unshaken when everything else threatens to crumble. For women who have walked through the fires of history, facing oppression, silencing norms, and the weight of unspoken burdens, this calm is more than a luxury, it's a revolution. It's a defiance of the chaos that seeks to define us, a reclaiming of our voices, our minds, our very essence. What if the key to breaking free from the chains of expectation, fear, and turmoil lies not in shouting louder or fighting harder, but in the steady and yielding whisper of a heart at peace? Let's dive into this timeless philosophy, woven with real stories of women past and present, to uncover how inner calm lights a path for us to rise, lead, and thrive amidst life's wildest storms. Philosophy has long held stillness as a hallmark of wisdom, a truth that echoes powerfully in the lives of women across centuries. Picture a young mother in a bustling American suburb today. She's up before dawn, packing lunches, answering emails, racing to meetings, then home to wrangle homework and bedtime drums. The world screams at her through screens and voices. You're not enough, not fit enough, not rich enough, not patient enough. Her mind could easily spiral into a tempest of doubt and frustration. But one evening, after the kids are asleep, she sits on her porch with a cup of tea. She breathes deeply, letting the noise fade, feeling the cool air on her skin. In that moment, the chaos loses its grip. She's not running from it, she's mastering it. This is inner calm, a quiet rebellion against a culture that demands women fracture themselves to fit its mold. It's the same calm that carried Harriet Tubman through dark forests, guiding slaves to freedom with a steady gaze, or that steadies Mollo Mayas of Ca. She speaks for girls' education despite threats. For women, this isn't passivity, it's power, a refusal to let the world dictate who we are. Think of a tale from ancient times, one that mirrors the struggles women face today. A renowned calligrapher sat at his desk, his brush gliding across paper, crafting characters with elegance and precision. A friend stopped by, peering over his shoulder. "These two rows," the friend said, pointing to neat, flowing text, "you wrote these in perfect peace. Look how strong they are." Then his fingers slid to a later section, where the strokes jagged and faltered. "But here, your heart was in chaos." The calligrapher paused, brush trembling. He realized that very morning a petty argument with his wife had rattled him. His unrest had seeped into his art, turning harmony into disorder. Yesterday's work, born of calm, glowed with beauty. Today's was a shadow of itself. Women know this intimately. When our minds churn, whether from a cutting remark, a looming deadline, or a silent grief it shows, our words snap, our hands shake, our spirits dim. But when we find that stillness, everything shifts. Our presence becomes a force, our decisions clear, our resilience unbreakable. This isn't just about ink on paper, it's about the lives we paint every day. History offers another lens. In 383 AD, during China's Battle of Fei River, General Xian faced a dire test. His army of less than 100,000 and stood against 1,000,000 fierce soldiers from the rival Qin dynasty. The situation was bleak. Panic could have swallowed his camp whole. Yet Xian sat in his tent, playing Go, the ancient strategy game, his face serene as if the world were net teetering on collapse. A breathless messenger burst in with updates as he glanced at the report, nodded, and returned to his board. An aide, unable to bear the tension, finally blurted, "What's happening out there?" Xi smiled faintly. "The kids have already won." His calm wasn't ignorance, it was command. Women live this every day. We face towering odds, unequal pay, endless caregiving, systemic dismissal, and still we hold steady. Maybe it's a single mom in Atlanta balancing two jobs while her kids sleep, or a nurse in a packed tier keeping her cool as alarms blare. Calm isn't the absence of pressure, it's the courage to meet it head-on without shattering. This thread of stillness weaves through women's stories across time. In ancient Rome, Cornelia Africanae lost her husband young, leaving her to raise two sons amid a crumbling republic. Political intrigue swirled, yet she didn't rage or retreat. She taught her boys with a quiet hand, shaping them into reformers who'd challenge Rome's elite. Her calm wasn't loud, but its echo was deafening. Today, a woman in a small Texas town mirrors her. Widowed at 30, she works nights at a diner, saving every penny to send her daughter to college. She doesn't curse fate, she builds a future, one steady step at a time. For women, the calm is a lifeline through storms, a way to endure, to adapt, to turn pain into purpose. It's not about avoiding hardship, it's about rising above it, crafting something enduring from the ashes. But let's not romanticize it. Calm is hard. Life doesn't hand it to us on a silver platter, it hurls challenges that test every fiber of our being. Imagine a holiday party at a sleek corporate office. A woman walks in, feeling good in a new dress that hugs her curves. She's plus-sized, confident, radiant, until a male co-worker smirks and says, "Great fabric, but it's like draping a tarp over a barrel." Laughter ripples through the room. Her face burns, anger and shame collide in her chest. She could fire back, let the fury loose, and maybe she'd feel vindicated for a moment. Instead, she takes a breath, excuses herself, and steps outside. In the cool night air, she doesn't plot revenge. She sees his words for what they are, his failure, not hers. She chooses calm not because it's easy, but because it's hers to wield. That co-worker, he's a decent guy, skilled, always ready to lend a hand. But his blunt tongue can cost him. Colleagues distance themselves, promotions passed him by. Women navigate this tightrope daily, absorbing barbs, dodging bias, choosing when to fight and when to rise above. So how do we find this calm? It's not a birthright, it's a craft honed through grit and grace. Picture a girl in rural Pakistan, told school's not for her kind. Her brothers study, she's left with chores. But late at night, under a dim lamp, she borrows their books, tracing words with her finger. She teaches herself page by page, year by year. Today, she's a community leader, opening doors for other girls. Her calm wasn't a given, it grew from defiance, from choosing growth over resentment. Philosophy underscores this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. For women, this isn't theory, it's gospel. Every time we quiet the storm within, we're forging a shield no one can pierce. It's the immigrant mother learning English at night, the survivor rebuilding after trauma, the dreamer daring to chase what others deny her. Anger complicates this. It's a wildfire, fast, fierce, and all huntsmanship. A woman yells at her partner after a grueling day, sharp words, cut deeper than intended. Later, alone, she feels the sting not just in their rift, but in her own spirit. Buddhism captures it perfectly. Anger is like grasping a burning coal to hurl at another. You're either one who burns. Women know this dance. Society tells us to swallow it, then mocks us when it spills. But calm offers a way out, not suppression, but space. In 1960's Alabama, Diane Nash led civil rights marches with a stillness that baffled aggressors. Facing jeers and clubs, she didn't scream, she stood firm, her calm a weapon against hate. Today, a woman de-escalating a family feud does the same. She doesn't fuel the fire, she lets it die, preserving her peace and theirs. Education is a cornerstone of this power. Imagine a girl in Victorian England, shut out of classrooms because of her sex. She hides in the attic, poring over her father's books, Plato, Rousseau, Mary Wollstonecraft. Ideas bloom in her mind. She sees beyond her cage. She doesn't just learn, she transforms. Education isn't mere facts, it's liberation, a widening of the soul that steadies us. Data backs this. UNESCO found that each extra year of school for girls raises their future income by up to 20, sparking cycles of empowerment. In 2022, a program in Kenya saw educated mothers lift entire villages, their confidence rippling outward. For women, knowledge is an anchor keeping us grounded when the world tries to sweep us away. Yet the world resists. Society twists calm into weakness, resilience into obedience. Nietzsche's B.R. Mensch, the self-overcoming ideal, cuts through this. He urged us to reject the herd, to forge our own paths, a clarion call women have answered for ages. Sojourner Truth stood tall in 1851, her voice ringing, "Ain't I a woman?" Her calm wasn't meek, it was a tidal wave, born of a spirit that refused to bow. Today, a coder in Silicon Valley challenging a boys' club echoes her. Calm lets us wield our will not as fury, but as creation. It's the entrepreneur building a business against odds, the artist painting her truth, the mother teaching her kids to dream. We don't just endure, we redefine. Real stories flesh this out. In 1980's Brazil, Zildjian saw kids dying from malnutrition. A doctor and mother, she could have railed at the injustice. Instead, she acted with quiet purpose, founding Pastoral Dossier Ayana. Her work slashed infant deaths by millions, her calm a catalyst for change. Or picture a Syrian refugee mother today, crossing deserts with her children. Bombs stole her home, but not her resolve. She walks on, eyes fixed ahead, her stillness a shield. These women don't just survive, they sculpt new worlds. Calm isn't loud, but it's vast, a deep well of strength fueling every step. This isn't flawless. We falter. A woman in a toxic relationship might mistake calm for surrender, staying silent too long. Another might explode, losing herself to rage. But this philosophy bends, not breaks. In Tokyo, a woman named Eiko felt trapped in a soul-crushing job. She didn't storm out, she turned to meditation, sitting in silence each night. Over months her calm grew, guiding her to a life as a potter, shaping clay and her future. Her peace wasn't instant, it was earned, proof of women's ability to pivot, to heal, to rise anew. The impact spreads. A calm woman shapes those around her. Research from Yale in 2020 showed kids of steady parents are 35 more likely to build resilience. In a quiet Oregon town, a mom named Lena teaches her son to breathe through frustration, a trick she learned surviving layoffs and loss. That boy grows up knowing strength isn't noise, it's presence. Calm isn't solitary, it's a legacy. In Senegal, a grandmother named Fatou sits with her granddaughters, sharing tales of endurance. Her quiet wisdom plants seeds for a generation that won't bend to hardship. Criticism demands care. In ancient China, diplomat Yanzi faced a king furious over a lost hawk. The king wanted blood, Yan didn't scold. He spun a story, listing the servants' crimes in a way that humbled the king without a fight. The execution stopped, harmony held. Women master this art daily. A teacher corrects a student with gentle firmness, building trust. A friend offers truth without sting. This isn't dodging, it's wisdom, a skill we've honed navigating power's edge. Silence, too, is potent. In 2018, a woman named Priya faced a ranting landlord. She didn't argue, she stood quiet, letting his words crash against her stillness. He softened, later apologizing. Zen calls this the peak of insight, knowing when to hold back. For women often pushed to explain or appease, silence is a standard claim to space without justification. In a 2023 protest, a young activist named Maya faced police lines. She didn't shout, she knelt, her calm a louder cry than any chant. At its core, calm is liberty. A teenager in Afghanistan fleeing a forced marriage doesn't panic. She waits, plans, then slips away, her heart steady as stone. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence challenges us. Could you relive this life? Women, calm says yes, not because it's painless, but because it's ours. A 2021 Gallup poll found 70 of women feel societal pressure to do it all, yet those practicing mindfulness report 45 higher self-esteem. Calm isn't flight, it's ownership, a seizing of our narrative. We see this in women everywhere. In 1900s India, Sarojini Naidu wrote poetry and led independence marches with a poet's grace. In 2020's Ukraine, a medic named Olena saves lives amid war, her hands steady as shells fall. From ancient queens to modern trailblazers, calm is our thread, quiet yet fierce, soft yet unyielding. It's the mother whispering hope to her child, the leader steering through crisis, the dreamer building what others can't see. In a world that demands we roar, our stillness speaks louder, a power no tumult can mute. This is our birthright, our story, our triumph. Hold it close and watch it reshape everything.